Hey guys, I've taken some time out of my extensively intensive NCIS watching schedule today to talk to you a little bit more about the 290X. Now I did just put a post up on the Tiny Tom Logan Facebook page basically saying, do I need to clarify my exact thoughts on the 290X versus the 780 and the Titan, just to kind of make sure everyone knows exactly where I'm coming from, because it seems, even though that video was massive, too many of my points were spread out too far apart and people seem to have forgotten what's going on in between. And people don't seem to like me swearing so much either. So I need to remember to try and fucking not swear in this one. Right, so let's start from the very basics, because one of the things I've seen on the forums so much already today is Tom's been paid off by Nvidia, which, to be fair, that's a normal comment as soon as I say that I don't like something. With previous Asus motherboards, it was instantly I'd been paid off by Gigabyte and MSI. Because I've said something bad about AMD, it's blatant that it's going to be about Nvidia, or from Nvidia. But the thing that you need to kind of understand from a business point of view straight away is I've actually taken a huge risk even saying some of the negative things that I have about this, because I do have an AMD advertising contract. Advertising is how this whole industry works. Without advertising, you don't get any of these reviews or anything like that. And every website on the planet relies on advertising money to be able to pay the bills. And that's your server costs. That's even just simple things like, you know, putting electric in the office. But we won't go off topic with that. I will say I have no Nvidia advertising on the books for the remainder of the year, and I haven't for the last quarter either. I have AMD. So, like I said, me saying what I have done about this is really a little bit of a risk that I might piss them off. But I don't really see them as being, you know, that petty. It's just the fanboys latching onto stuff. Now, if you look at the review, you will see I gave it a performance award, and I did say a lot of good things about it. But one thing I want to clear up just instantly, because it's something that a lot of people have been going on about, is this costs, I've been told from AMD directly, £449. Now, when I first made the first section of the video before, I was making that when I'd been told it was going to be $699 or £525. Literally yesterday evening, stroke late afternoon, I got told the revised price, and that was when I had to make a completely different segment of my conclusion. I had to redo it all. I just didn't have the time or patience to want to redo the whole thing all over again, because from what I've seen, prices got dropped. Now, I don't know whether it was a price drop or whether there was some miscommunication or it was rumours and stuff, but it was vendors that I spoke to about the 699 and 525, and that was a price that I got given from an official source. So the first segment of the video went from that. When Nvidia finally come back to AMD finally come back to me, it was actually another official source that I'd asked. I got told the 449. I went to AMD and said, right, I've just heard this from this vendor. You know, can you at least kind of confirm this for me? I've got work that I need to be doing. And they eventually did come back and go, yeah, it looks like 449 is going to be correct. So it was $549 and then £449, which, for an exchange rate type thing, that was pretty favourable, because normally sometimes dollar prices can almost be exactly the same as GBP when they get over here. So £449. Now, everyone instantly then latched onto the fact that it's half the price of the Titan. That is 100% correct. And when you say that this will, you know, kind of match, or if not beat in some places, the Titan, you would also be correct. But there's a problem with that. And that's, so does the 780. And I've been saying from literally the time that I got hold of a Titan for the first time, that as far as gaming is concerned, the Titan is just a pointless e-ping card. Do you not remember the amount of comments that we had on the videos when I kind of went out and said this, and everyone's going, oh my God, everyone's, you know, going to be butthurt, because when this first came out, 780 first came out, it was so close to the Titan, it was ridiculous. And then as soon as you overclocked it, it was better. And the driver updates, now this is the most critical thing, the driver updates actually benefited this more than the Titan, to the point where even stock 780s that we've seen since have outdone the Titan. That's before you start to overclock them. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about the aesthetics on this and stuff, because people are going to go nuts. But anyway, so what we'll do, so we'll say, you know, everyone's saying about the Titan thing, that's fair enough, but you need to remember that the 780 isn't that much money. That is the competition for this. The 780 is the thing that you should be comparing the 290X to. Not really the Titan, because it's so much more expensive, and it's just a compute card. It's just an EPing card, and to be fair, Nvidia brought that card, as far as I'm concerned, Nvidia brought that card in to make the 780 look like good value for money, because we'd never had a 500 plus single core card before. Do you know what I mean? We used to moan about, you know, the 690s being, for say, or whatever they were, the 590s being like 650. So by bringing such an expensive Titan in, they made this look better value for money. It was amazing marketing. And if Nvidia had not have done that, this wouldn't be this much money either. So it's, do you know what I mean? Everything is part and parcel. But what we do need to remember is you need to compare this one to this one. If you compare it to the Titan, then you're really just trying to make this look that little bit better. I wouldn't compare the Titan at all. And by that point, it's because I would never tell you to buy a Titan either. Folding at home, server farms and stuff. I mean, even then you're like, why don't you just buy a Tesla? It's a really complicated card. Now, like I said, it's up there for EPing or people with really fucking stupid resolutions. And that's kind of another thing that we need to talk about as well. Is people saying about the 4K. Now 4K, yeah, okay, you can go and test it if you want. But let's face facts here, and I mean deadly facts. I tested up to 2560 by 1440. That is still a £500 monitor that I tested that on. Why would you spend, you know, the 4K screens are ridiculous money. I mean, the last time I looked, you're looking at like £3,000 for the Asus one. Why would you spend £3,000 on a monitor and then only spend £500 on a graphics card? And it's kind of, the 4K stuff is so expensive, it's really not mainstream enough yet. It's just EPing for, you know, really, really expensive. And I don't even really see many people going out to buy a 4K monitor unless it's for professional use. I don't think the average gamer is going to expect to, you know, go and buy one of those screens and then not have a bank of graphics cards that are going to be ridiculous money anyway to power it. So the 4K tests, although it's good to see, it doesn't even really matter yet. The games aren't really even going to be, you know, properly utilising that kind of resolution properly, or at least I wouldn't have thought so. I'm probably going to get people that tell me I'm wrong. But I just don't see it mainstream enough for us really to be considering. If I was a graphics card manufacturer, I probably would be thinking about these type of things, you know, in the distant future. But when I've seen the frames per second that these cards are getting, I don't really see, I wouldn't want to play a game at those kind of frames per second. I would rather have even a 2560 by 1440 or 1600 screen. I would rather play at those kind of resolutions. But even then, when you think about Metro, the latest Metro game, when you think about that, a 780 or one of these will still be getting down to 30-40 frames a second in a 2560 by 1440 environment. So why would you want to push on those resolution requirements when the graphics cards aren't completely, you know, obliterating games at the lower level? So that's another thing. Now, something I do need to point out, because people seem to think I'm a fanboy. Now, I've already said that I've got AMD advertising on the site. And that's because, remarkably, I have a really good relationship with AMD. But also because I sit beside 297970s on a daily basis. And in my test rig here, as I'm testing a motherboard at the moment, is a Club 3D 7970. And I've been using 7970s since they first come out. I had a choice when the Z87 boards were released. I could have switched to flick over to a 780 because we had a reference one here, and I could have changed the testing over so that all of the 780 Haswell boards, they were all tested on a 780, and I chose not to. A, so that we could still compare them to the previous generation of motherboards and the 2011 stuff, but also because I actually had high hopes for this, and at some point I did want to switch over to this. So we've kind of covered price and all that kind of stuff. Now, a lot of people also instantly went on the offensive because I compared the two coolers, but then I also kind of compared aftermarket coolers as well. Now, mine really didn't overclock, which is why we didn't put it in. The results were so negligible, and everyone was kind of saying to me, oh, that was because that you didn't run it on Uber mode. It's in Uber mode. I tested it on Uber mode, and when I did the video with the stopwatch, it was on Uber mode. It says that the fan speed was capped to 55%. To be fair, if you were to turn this fan up, to be able to, you know, overclock it more, which mine just wasn't stable. When I do my overclock testing, I generally bang the fan up to 100% or at least 80%, depending on how, you know, much it makes my ears bleed, so that I know I've got temperatures sorted out, and then I try to overclock it. Well, mine was, I couldn't get it at 1100 megahertz. I couldn't get it to pass 3D Mark Vantage in extreme mode. Now, Vantage is a graphics card crippler. One of the graphics cards, the 7970s in Orca, will pass everything other than Vantage at 1325 megahertz. I have to knock that card in that back down to 1175 just to get it to pass Vantage Extreme. I can do all of the fire strikes and everything at 1300 and silly megahertz, and that's not with any you know, stupid modifications or anything like that. That's quite literally just the fact that it's on water and using afterburner. It is a bloody good card. It's a silicon lottery card. I've, you know, no stretch of the imagination with that. But I'm just using that to show you how kind of stressing Vantage is. And for our graphics card tests, if it passes Vantage, then generally it will pass everything else. And that's what we call, do you know what I mean? Once we've got that Vantage stable, that's what we then run with. Because it's like a worst case scenario type thing. So there is an immense allegiance to AMD, which is one of the reasons why I took a little bit of offence to people saying that I was just bashing them. I did expect more, to be fair, and I did, you know, expect more from the cooler. Every review out there is saying it's too hot. We've not got any quibbles with that. I took a little bit more with the stock cooler because I think it looks a bit bland. And okay, maybe I did go a little bit too overboard on the fact I looked at, you know, I thought it was so bland, but I'm happy to say, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, that's the best reference cooler that they've ever put out. And yeah, okay, these do carry a bit of a price premium, but a lot of people were also moaning that I was kind of comparing this to the MSI 780 Gaming. There was only one real reason why I compared it to the 780 Gaming, and that's because this is 450. I found the 780 Gaming for 480, so there was £30 in it, and my reason being was, for £30 you got, we already know this, if you look at our graphs, we already know this and the stock 780 trade blows. It's literally, they're pretty much level pegging. You know, in some benchmarks, where most benchmarks, the 780 was kind of in front. This loves Firestrike and Firestrike Extreme, so that you could, there were points where you kind of got that. When you got to frames per second, as far as we were concerned, stock card to stock card, there wasn't a lot in it. If you chuck the 780 Gaming into the mix, I mean, the overclock results on that, this wasn't anywhere close. One of the games with the 780 gaming, yes, I know I'm saying overclock, but I'm just trying to, you know, remember all these points because I never try and write stuff down. But in one of the games, the 780 gaming, when it was overclocked, was 15 frames per second in front of this on an average. Not a boost, you know, not a maximum. It was 15 frames per second faster on the average score. And so all I was kind of saying was the 780 gaming was £30 more expensive. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's the same performance. It will overclock, so it's better performance. It's cooler, it's quieter, and as far as I'm concerned, it actually looks like it might, you know, be worth the price. But trying to say positive things about this. This blatantly 150-10% needs a third-party cooler on it. But I asked Asus about the third-party cooler debacle, and they've told me there's not a DCU2 penciled in for this year. Club 3D have said that they've not even managed to get any proper, you know, decent stock out of AMD yet, and they don't see them bringing a third-party cooler, you know, other than the reference one. They don't see them really being able to get one into the shops and, you know, and ready for everyone until maybe 2014, and that's because AMD have done a reference-only launch. So these are the ones that you're going to be able to get your hands on. If you want to buy one of these, because I'm not necessarily telling you don't, because I know there's going to be loads of people out there that are going to, you know, want to get one of these and want to have one in your rig. I honestly see, unless you don't mind those high temperatures, it would worry me. It really would. I don't think I could put up with knowing my graphics card is at 95 degrees. That would just, I would worry that stuff was going to break. I wouldn't want my CPU running that much, and I've never wanted my graphics card running that much. So as far as I'm concerned, if you can't get a third-party cooler, then really you need to be water cooling it. That may well be where this thing comes into its own. If you know, it's designed to run up to 95 degrees worth of performance, if you stick a water block on this, I mean, the 7970s in Orca, they sit at about 45 degrees, even a max load, I think they might go up to about 48, I can't remember, but not a lot, well below 50 degrees. When I water cooled the Titan before, which, you know, can be a little bit of a hot bastard when you start, you know, ramping the temps up, ramping the clocks up, and the 780, they were both ticking around about the 50 degrees as well. So if this was to be at those type of things, then we could well be in for some fun. There won't be any thermal limitations then. If we get the water block on it and we get rid of those thermal limitations, the limit then will be how much we can actually get from the core in the first place. And that again comes down to the silicon lottery. So it will be one of those things where I am going to put a water block on this. There is no two fucking shakes. I don't care, you know, what people are bitching about on forums about me being egotistical and all that kind of bullshit. I will still be testing this with a water block. All I did with my review was take the results that I got, which I'm 100% happy with. I couldn't have done any better for it, really. It had a 4.6 gigahertz 3960X for starters. We didn't use, you know, Haswell or anything like that. We give it every possible, I used a 4960X. And why did I use a 4960X? Was to make sure that I had PCI Express 3 on it, but that's not going to matter anyway because we're not crossfiring or anything. So I did everything possible that I could have done to try and give this, you know, the best possible kind of leg up. Really, by using the 4960X over the 3960X, I could have even given it an extra bonus compared to the previous cards that we tested, because they were all done on the 3960X, and obviously the 3960X hasn't got PCI Express 3 enabled on it. But yes, so I did do as much as I possibly could do when I tried overclocking it. I had the fans up, I had it on Uber mode, I did everything that I could. So, you know, maybe hands up. I did personally expect too much from it, but it's because I wanted it to do well. I wanted to be sitting here with this thing that, you know, you kind of, it blinged in the light, you know, almost like when you smile and ding. It was one of those glory cards where we could finally sit here and go, AMD have just fucking done it. And NVIDIA would be running around in fucking circles not knowing what to do. And I think really, although it is very good, and it's bloody good that they are, you know, up there with the best of them, like I said, I personally wanted it to do better. I do think AMD need to take the taps off and just say to all the bloody third-party vendors, all that kind of shit, they need to just go, right, okay, we know it's a little hot cookie, but we need you to go away and sort that out. But, and this is a very big but, I spoke to someone else in the industry about RMA, because if those cores start dying because they've overheated, then that still ends up going back to AMD. So what we think, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about this morning, this is one of the reasons why it's the afternoon, and I'm making the video, you know, later on, is because I've been now talking to, you know, mates in the industry and stuff, and they've come up with a pretty good kind of theory about why they've locked this reference down, at least at first. And that's because the cooler will work as well as it needs to keep the card alive. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just, you know, trying to make it very clear. The card should not die with this cooler on it. But some of the manufacturers out there don't really make the best aftermarket coolers. And they look nice, but so many times with aftermarket stuff, when we test it, it's a bit pants. Doesn't really, the temperatures don't really just back up the fact that it's, you know, there. It's just one of those kind of situations where you're like, the reference cooler was better. So what we've kind of thought is that they've not really trusted some of these manufacturers to do a decent enough job that they won't then end up with a shitload of RMAs coming through. So it's almost like trying to stop a problem before it starts. They're trying to think ahead, and they think, well, they're probably going to make a shit cooler, so we just won't let them for a bit, and then we'll just have to try and make sure that they do, or we give them more time to make sure that they build a decent one. So that's just a theory. We don't know whether that's true or not, but it certainly makes a lot of fucking sense with the... see, I'm swearing again. There's going to be people now turning off because their 3-year-olds are going to be running away swearing, put your cans on. But, you know, it's trying to stop, you know, that massive influx and people posting on forums, oh, my 290X has died, it's overheated. What card have you got? Oh, with XXX cooler. It could just end up being the cooler's not up to cooling this. We do know already that it gets really hot. It's going to take some special coolers to keep this thing tamed, and maybe like the Gigabyte twin fan things. But you're going to have heat pipes galore, and it's going to have a lot of heat to dissipate. Something else that you need to kind of consider as well is this is a nice blow cooler. Dumps all the air out the back. It's probably the best they could have done with this type of, you know, style cooler. But a lot of the big aftermarket coolers, like the DCU2, like the Windforce, even the MSI Gaming, those type of ones, those cards don't really utilise this back thing, and all that heat is going to end up getting dumped in your case. Now, this could be the type of card that we end up kind of turning around saying, well, how much does that affect your system temps? Till those cards come out, you know, we're not really going to know, but it could be something that we could end up taking into account is with a really hot, you know, cookie like this in your case, maybe it could possibly end up after a few hours of gaming warming everything else up. Obviously, this at the moment does dump it out the back, but we're not going to know when those new cards come through. But I think a lot of people just went apeshit because I didn't just go with the, oh my God, it's a brand new card and I love it. But you need to kind of consider, I'm trying to tell you this as it is. And yes, I am slightly numbed to all this new hardware because I do get to play with a lot of it. But that puts me in a slightly better position than most of the people out there that are just going to be reading these reviews and buying it. It's because it doesn't bother me whether it's a 290X or a 270X or a Titan. I don't care how much it costs. Well, I do care how much it costs, but I will look at it as the complete package. It's not just all new. That side of things, the all new bit, I don't really care about. I look at it as how it performs, how it's in my hands, you know, how it looks, how it sounds, the frames per second, the benchmarks. I take consideration into everything. And for me, when you consider, you know, everything like that, and then you can kind of go and, you know, yes, okay, it means spending 30 quid more, but you take the 30 quid more card And I just saw a lot more positives going with spending a little bit more rather than getting this ref one. And I think that was the problem. People didn't like the fact that I was kind of saying, don't buy that. Well, I wasn't saying don't buy that, but I was kind of saying I saw a card that was slightly more expensive as better value for money. And that was my thing. And it was just, in my eyes, if someone had come to me and said, right, Tom, I've got £500 to spend on a graphics card, I would have told them to have gone and bought that £480 one. I really would have done. If you're on a really tight budget, this isn't going to be in your price list anyway. So, yeah. But I think at this present moment in time, if you really, really want a 290X or two, if you're lucky enough, I would wholeheartedly say that if temperatures are going to be an issue for you, as they would be for me, you've got to start thinking about water blocks, and that would be the only way that I would personally say that it might be worth you, spending your money on. If I was going to be changing Orca out for a pair of these, is because that's another thing. I've been stalling taking Orca apart for ages because I need to get the hot chocolate coolant out of it, and I want to put the new blood red stuff in there. And this was one of the things even I was umming and ahhing about. And now it's got to the point of, all right, okay, so perhaps I need to test it with a water block now and see if I can. I'm actually looking for ways to try and convince myself I need to put a couple of these in Orca. But I may end up just keeping the 7970s in there because it's two graphics cards. It still looks good. So hopefully I've cleared up, some of there are certain people that are kind of nitpicking about, oh, we shouldn't have compared the 290X to the 780 gaming. I don't see why I shouldn't, considering the prices are so close together. And when you consider the prices are so close together and one's reference and one's not, I thought that made it an even more viable comparison. There's many different angles about where my thoughts are from. I think the way I will kind of recap quickly, just at the end, just so that we all know, don't compare the 290 to the Titan, because the Titan's just so expensive, and the main reason is because I've had a lot of 780s that are quicker than the Titan. The driver updates for the 780 really benefited the 780, and the Titan just kind of stagnated and never really got any further. The 780 results just got up and up and up and up. This could well end up happening with the 290 as well, you're right. But it is 780 performance in 1920 by 1080 with all the bells and whistles turned up, in 2560 by 1440 with all the bells and whistles turned up. On the games that we tested, they were like siblings. It was like they were the same card but with a different sticker on. There was just, one might be slightly quicker on one by a couple of frames a second, the other might be slightly quicker on the other one. There really wasn't much to tell between them other than the normal graphics card driver stroke game allegiances, that type of stuff. We obviously do need to think about Mantle coming up as well. I hope, for the love of God, Mantle just changes the game completely. I really do, because this is one of the things a lot of people don't understand is I want this fucking graphics card to do so well, and that's because if it doesn't do so well that it scares Nvidia, then we're not really going to be getting, driving the market. I want there to be fierce competition. I want there to be, oh my God, we need to go and bloody, make the best thing since sliced bread, because if that happens, that means I might actually be able to get excited about stuff that gets released again. So, the more they push each other, the more the market will take will take giant leaps forward rather than little baby steps. And I personally think another thing with both of the brands as well, the fact that they've kind of put graphics cards more expensive in front of the other ones for the first time ever kind of shows you, that they are quite sneakily, when you think about it. Before, we'd always get, the stuff would generally get replaced if there was a big launch from one, you'd get a big launch from another, and you got a big boost. But they would replace the old cards. This is the first time where the graphics card manufacturers have gone, well, actually, we've not really got any game stressing stuff, but we'll make these mental cards and we'll just charge you more for it rather than replacing the old ones. And they've both done it now. So maybe at some point somewhere, Nvidia and AMD met in a hotel room somewhere and had some wild sex and just decided, well, actually, we just need to be making a little bit more money out of people, and we'll put the graphics cards in front rather than replacing the old ones. And yeah, all right, well, I'm going to go first with mine and make a little bit more money, because you need to make sure that you can actually keep up with your architecture first. Maybe that happened, we'll never know. But that is my kind of in-depth, but that's like bollocks, isn't it, really? That's my thoughts on exactly where I am with this stuff. I want that card to do better. Please, AMD, let the vendors just go nuts with it so that we can, see if we can get some decent scores out of it on air. If not, maybe this is going to be the first time that we properly go about, it being water cooling only. And I forgot to mention something massive. People seem to think I've never said this about AMD, about Nvidia stuff before. Do you not remember how much I positively hated the cooler on the 480? It was quick, but it was too hot and it was too loud. It's this all over again. And because so many people bitched and moaned about the 480, suddenly, magically, the 580 come along, which was just a little bit quicker, but not a lot. But most importantly, it was ridiculously cooler. So maybe there's some work to be done on this to make it cooler. Who knows? But, right, so I am going to leave you with that, and you can just kind of make your own mind up. Hopefully I've kind of explained things for those people that have been trolling and bitching and moaning and all that kind of stuff. I think really the way it comes down to it at the end of the day, if people will always look for a fight, pick an argument, whatever, and it's far too easy to pick on me because I sit in front of a camera and talk to you. And I guess that's just kind of one of the drawbacks of the job, really. But the review, the video, everything I stand by because they're the results that I got, and that's the conclusion that I come to. Hopefully this has just kind of clarified things a little bit more, so people can stop trying to find little nitpicky holes to try and get in and around. But I'm going to leave that with you. Please leave your comments underneath. Also, if you've got something constructive to say rather than just trolling, because, feed the trolls, come and say hello in the Overclock 3D forums as well. But I'm going to love you and leave you and get back to watching Jeffro on NCIS.